In His grace, God gave us a sequential end-time timeline that was hidden in the Psalms for thousands of years, waiting to be discovered. It has now been revealed here at the last minutes of the church age. This channel discusses end-time prophecy from the unique perspective of the encrypted timeline in the Psalms. If you want to know where we are on the timeline, please subscribe and take some time to watch the other videos on this channel. Also, please consider purchasing a copy of Encrypted, Unlocking the Timeline Revelation in the Psalms. Not only will it help you to better understand the time we're living in, but it will also be a very important book to leave behind. God bless you.
Welcome. We've had to start over a few times tonight because something seems like it always happens. So anyway, we'll just say it again. Welcome to everybody who's watching by video. And tonight we're going to do the final 10 steps. We had started a couple weeks ago. We got through the first 5, which equates to this year, which is the year of Gog Magog and the rapture. Yay. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. And we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end too. So tonight what we're going to do is we're going to eventually get to the 10 steps. But I have some things that I want to talk about first. And first of all, I want to say that even though last week was like before you all got here, was, I don't know, just minutes, I don't know, 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes or so before, arrival, everything fell apart. And I was pretty distraught, to say the least, because it's not just that I lost a lot of work. It's just that I'm sitting there going, Lord, I don't know how to do I cancel this now? What do I do? Or do I just wing it? And I want to say that I believe the Lord made something out of it. And so, yeah, I'm really super grateful for that. And I sort of think that, maybe there's a lesson in there, that maybe I don't need to do quite so much writing. I'm not writing a book anymore, but if you put like the last 22 lessons together, you've got another book. Well, I'm not interested in writing another book. These lessons are just to, basically we have the book, so we have the Bible, obviously. We've got a lot of other material out there. There are a lot of people who have figured out a lot of things, and there are a lot of people who have different pieces to the puzzle. And I think that my book provides another piece to the puzzle. And when you put it all together, you start seeing clearly what God encrypted in His Word. And wow, it really got hot in here all of a sudden, didn't it? We had to turn the fan off because if the fan is running, the microphone picks it up really loud, and it's hard to, even with all the electronics and stuff, it's hard to get rid of it. I had a little filter and it didn't really work. So we tried a few things, but the fan is just too much for the microphone but we're going to have to open that door. Anybody want to open the door? So anyway, long story short is I believe the Lord made something out of it, and I'm going to try to not do so much study and writing, even though it's really my passion. It's what I want to do. But I think for the next couple of weeks, I've got to get some things finished here. So as far as future, if we're still here, I'll just let the Lord dictate what I do every day and just go day to day. I'm not going to worry about the future too much. So anyway, I did want to kind of follow my outline a little bit, or else I'll just wander all over the place. And I did want to say that there are a lot of comments that I have not gotten to this week. I really haven't had time. What I like to do is sit down and sort of dedicate, a block of time so that I can start going through them and answering them. I haven't been able to do that, but I will do that soon. I promise. I hate it when I get comments and I want to answer them and I just don't have time to. And I know if I'm here at the shop and I start doing it, I'll spend the whole day doing that. And because it's not just on the last video that they're coming in now, but they're coming in on all the videos. For like 22 videos now, I think, comments are coming in on. So I wanted to also say thank you for the comments, and thank you for the good comments, the kind comments, okay? Also for suggestions for donations. Some people have sent donations, and I'm really excited about that. It's such a blessing. I don't even know how to express that. And thank you also for your prayers. A lot of people are saying that they are praying for this little ministry, and that is amazing. I don't know. I'm just kind of blown away by it, because this is just such a little thing, but God is making something more out of it than I could have ever imagined. So I'm really excited about that. Just whatever he wants to do, I'm happy with. So, yeah, speaking of comments, there were a couple of comments that I haven't answered, but that, I guess a few times now, people have commented that my book is too expensive and I should lower the price. And so I think I have written back on a couple of those, but I can see that that's going to be a recurring theme, so I thought I would just say something tonight about it. I didn't set the price, and I don't sell the book. There is a publisher, and they set the price. In fact, after they had the book pretty much put together, and we paid them thousands of dollars to do that, and I lost probably almost a year's worth of salary work, basically, putting the book together. So, I mean, I'm deeply in the hole over that. But that's neither here nor there, because I didn't do it to make money. I did it because I knew that the Lord wanted me to do it. And this was never about making any money. It was about getting it out there. Without a publisher, no one would ever know this existed. So it's sort of a necessary evil. The publisher called me, and I was really curious, wondering well, how much is this book going to be? Because I was afraid that it was going to be expensive, just based on its size. And they called me one day. I was over in the body shop side, and get the phone call, and they said, well, okay, we've calculated that with all the expenses of production and everything, on a 600 plus page book, the cheapest it can be sold for is going to be $40. And I about died. I was thinking 20. I mean, I'm still living in 1980s financially in my mind. I think everything should be based on, how things were priced back then. And so, yeah, I thought, oh no, that's a disaster. But, when they explained it to me, so it's 600 plus pages. If a 200 page book is $15, $40 is cheap for 600 plus pages. And I thought, wow, okay, I'm glad I cut 300-400 pages out of it, because it's going to be around 1,000. Because honestly, I figured that I'm never ever going to write another book. This is it. I wanted to put everything I could in there. But then I realized that time was getting short, and the last several hundred pages is going to be all about the Moedim, about the feast days and how they all interconnect. And so what I did is I trimmed all that down, and it's still a little bit in there, but not as much detail. And so I just never really, I don't know.
First countries,
Yeah, right. And then there's shipping. I mean, it's a heavy book. It weighs 2 pounds. So you're talking, it's not the Cliff's Notes, it's not small. And so I understand that it's expensive, but I want people to understand that I didn't set the price at $40, because their costs come up to over $37. So at $40, at some time in the future, if the Lord doesn't come, if we're just all wrong about everything, which I don't believe so, because he put an awful lot of evidence in his word, but I would get somewhere around $3 per paperback, per actual book. And out of that, I have to pay taxes too. So, I mean, it's really, nobody's getting rich off of a book, especially as the first time author. I would have to sell so many thousands of books to make a living at it. It would be, anyway, long story short, I don't set the price, and I am sorry that, especially in other countries, that it is because of the exchange rates or whatever. I don't have anything to do with it, and I wish I could just give it away. But yeah, but I'm obligated to a publisher too, and I've even thought, well, I could take the PDF, and give it away. But that's stealing. I mean, I'm actually not stealing from myself because there are other people. So that's not right either. And again, we're not living in, the financial world of 1980 like I do in my brain, and I think, oh my goodness, $40. But when you think about it, sorry, there's a gnat. Dang it, right in my face. If you think about it, I don't go to Starbucks, but I'm pretty sure most people spend more than that, probably in a week at Starbucks. I don't. I do love coffee, but I don't support Starbucks because they support things that are anti-Christian, anti-Christ, everything. So that's my little story about that. So I vote with my pocketbook and I don't go there. Anyway, so I think that's enough about that. I'm sorry if the book is too expensive. I really do wish that there was something that I could do and about that, but there's nothing that I can do. I would say to buy the electronic version, which I think is only around $15. I don't know if it changes in other countries, but basically it's $15. And so that's a whole lot cheaper. And the problem with that is then you don't have anything to leave behind. So when the Lord takes his children, there's nothing then they can just delete it off the internet. So I would say then, you can go on Amazon and get some cheap thumb drives and just put the book and whatever else other material you've got, put it on a thumb drive. And I wanted to talk about that tonight too. In fact, I think it's time to prepare, not to freak anybody out, but today's the 6th of September. We were talking, I think last week, about how the 18th on the Ascent calendar of September is the Feast of Trumpets. And so, I mean, that's like, 2 weeks away? Something like that. That's really, really soon. And then if you go by the Jewish Feast of Trumpets, your 1st, 2nd of October, that's really, really soon too. I mean, it's less than a month. So if in fact God doesn't hit the pause button, because he's God, he can do whatever he wants. He doesn't, all of this evidence, he can just say, well, you know what? I'm still going to hit the pause button. I don't think so, because it sort of makes, well, I don't know. I don't want to say that, but I really don't think so, because it's an overwhelming amount of evidence that he has placed in his word. And if I just don't see him throwing all that out the window. Having said that, he's still God and he can do that if he wants to. But I believe in heaven right now, they are anxiously awaiting the Father to say to the Son, go get your bride. I believe that they are fully aware. So they know the season. They're not just wondering like, well, when is it going to happen? They know. They don't know the day or the hour. They don't know the nanosecond that God is going to say do it, because that was left to him. That is only in the Father's control. And that's why I think everybody says we won't know the day or the hour. Yeah. But, I mean, if the demons knew about the seasons and they knew about the timeline back when Jesus was here, then you think the angels don't? That they don't know that, this is probably the year and they're waiting for the Father to say, go get your bride? I believe so. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. So, which brings me to my next comment that I received. I got this today. I'm going to read it. And then I have a question, okay? So, here it is. Would it be possible... This is kind of funny, actually. Would it be possible for you to actually stay on point? Question mark. You interrupt yourself so much and stop your train of thought to the point it distracts from your content. I would love to hear what you have to say, but you are your own worst enemy. I mean, what? Okay. So, yeah, I kind of have to respond to that. All right. I am who God made me. Okay? If you're looking for someone who's super structured and has the PowerPoint thing going and everything is right on the money and it doesn't get distracted, number one, that's not me. Number two, we are working right now We are sitting here and we are working through this little meeting. And I say working because we are all swatting gnats. And it's hot in here. There are distractions outside. There are distractions inside. This is a place of distraction. But you know what? God takes all that and he makes something out of it. And, the background is kind of crummy, but it is what it is. And either you want to listen or you don't. And I think I'm getting to the point where if people don't like it, I'm not going to change. I don't even have the ability to change it. So, yeah, I'm rambling and I'm all over the place, and I'm sorry. At the end of the evening, I think there will be some coherent statements made. You may have to try to pull them out, but I'll do my best. So, sorry about that. But, yeah. So, anyway.
Chapter last week, everything that was wrong. But when you started on the message, then you kind of station. There was no disconnection. There was all burns that you didn't lose train of thought.
Yeah, but I usually do. I totally get that. So, I can't argue the point. I do. I get distracted. And like we had the leaf blower guy and just all these distractions all the time around here. But, yeah. But I think sometimes people probably don't understand, too, that we're having to cut a lot of that out. And then it seems like from one moment to the next, in an instant, I'm over talking about something else because I'm trying to remember what we were talking about before the distraction happened and I had to stop. So, what was, who? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. See, I already got distracted. I'm moving on to the next thing and I forgot. The question is, for people who watch this, should I try to change that? Or just stick to what we're doing? Should I just, keep doing what we're doing? Or try to make this into something that really right now it just isn't?
I think people are made with you. You're new, and I like who you are. So no, those.
Well.
You get a little guy and you hear what.
Yeah, right.
You're going to be on. Yeah.
Guy with it. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I've said before, too, for every negative, and I would consider that a negative comment. It's kind of picky, but for every negative comment, I think there's probably 100 good comments, so I'm not going to worry about it. But, if I could change something like that, I would, but I can't change who I am. I can't change my thought patterns and what God throws at me at any given moment. So right now I'd like to change that because we had to open the door, obviously, because it got really hot in here. We opened the door and now all the gnats came in. So, all right. So now we're going to move on to a little news section. Because remember I told you it's going to be a little different from now on because I can't keep spending, all my time writing and studying. So, but while I am working, I leave like Israeli news and stuff on. And so I'm always kind of picking up on what's going on. So I wanted to say that, well, I'd already mentioned that today, well, I didn't mention that. Did I say we're at day number 336 of the war? Yeah, so 336. So think about it. If this thing is going to go on, let's just say that it is kind of pinpoint accurate, and the Rabbi Akiva prophecy is actually 360 days or maybe 365, then we're literally looking at 24 days until the end. So the gnats are worse than the heat. Oh, the train. Yeah, there's a train coming, so. Yep. Anyway, so the question there is, do we think that within the next couple of weeks, then we're going to see what the hook in the jaw is that's going to turn Gog around to come and attack Israel, or be part of the attack, be the leader of the attack on Israel? I mean, everything's still heading in that direction, but I would say, I think about this every day, it just seems like the restrainer is restraining. Does it not? It's sort of like it's just been, a punch and a blow and a punch and a blow back and forth. And then like this week, of course, we had the 6 hostages, and they were assassinated, so they knew that the IDF was about to rescue them, and they killed all of them. And what's crazy to me is then the world cries out that against Israel and their government and Netanyahu, for instance. And I'm not pro-Israel government. I'm not pro really any government at this point in life. But everybody's coming against them. Well, they're not the ones that did it. I think there's some kind of a mind virus that's taking over people. It just really doesn't make any kind of sense. So, and the world is saying that Israel is responsible and that they are committing war crimes. Well, taking hostages and assassinating them, that's actually a war crime. That's an international war crime. And I don't hear anybody condemning them for doing that. I mean, if they do, it's like, well, we condemn all forms of, but every day it's like Israel needs to do more. What are they supposed to do? I mean, nothing makes any sense. But anyway, long story short, it seems that the restrainer is restraining this thing, and I think there's going to come a day when this thing is just going to break open. And just before we turned the camera on, actually just before you guys got here, I was listening to, I know this sounds crazy, but like Hindustan News. I'm not sure if that's a place or what that is, but anyway, it's Hindustan News. And they had, I find some crazy things because, they give a different perspective. And but they're very much pro the Iranians and pro Hamas and all that. And so, but that's okay to get their perspective too. Well, they had the chief whatever guy from the Houthi rebels on there, and he was giving his speech, and they were translating it at the bottom. And basically, now this happened today, and he was telling, in a televised broadcast, he was telling the Muslim world, all the other Muslim nations, that they all need to declare jihad on Israel, and that they're all basically not doing their part. So it's like a battle cry. He's saying everybody needs to come together and we need to attack Israel, is what he's saying, and declare jihad now, that it's their duty not to just stand by and watch as Israel, defeats Hamas and Palestine, whatever, that they all need to basically attack Israel. That was just today. So, I mean, is that part of it? I think so. Yeah, I think so, because if you're one of those Muslim nations and you actually believe what you've been taught in the Quran and the Hadith and all the other writings that they go by, then yeah, I think he's right. I think that that's what they all should be doing, and I think they're probably going to realize that pretty soon. So the left-leaning population of Israel, they are coming against Israel also, and blaming the government, the prime minister, for the assassination of the 6 hostages. And so it made me stop and think, okay, well, all that sounds crazy, but at the same time, can you see how this 1 year they're trying to deplete and destroy Israel, one cut at a time, and also from within, because now they've got them fighting each other. So I don't know. That's enough about that. So I'm going to put this over here. That's that page of notes. So, all right. So here, this is super cool. Because I've looked up a lot of things about astronomy, not astrology, astronomy in the past. In Google, sometimes I'll get like a little story or whatever about things going on with eclipses and so forth. So I don't know if you guys have heard this or not, but okay. We're being attacked by gnats tonight. So that's Satan's little attack tonight, I think, is a plague of gnats. Wow. Anyway. No, you did good. You'll be my new audio technician. Yeah. Well, if we're still here, you can be my audio technician. So we had another pause. I mean, this is what we were talking about earlier. You know, we had the comment about distractions and stuff. Well, it's just part of it. So it got really hot in here. We had to open the door. Then it's like that time of day when gnats come out, and these gnats here in this Central Valley of California, they want to be in your face, and it's kind of hard to think and talk, and you know, you're afraid they're going to go in your mouth and all. So we had to turn the fan back on. Of course, that makes noise in the microphone, and people complain about that. So you know what? I don't care anymore. If you are irritated by all of these little things, as I am, but I'm still going to do this. If you're watching it and you're irritated by all these little things and you don't want to watch it, that's fine. We're you know what? We're being obedient to the Lord. We're here, and we were just discussing maybe we just cancel tonight because it kind of got a little ridiculous, and maybe next week is supposed to be a lot cooler, which means we won't have to run the fan and there won't be as many gnats and so on. So, but anyway, we took a vote. And it was unanimous. We're going to just keep going, and we're going to make something out of this. So whatever it is what it is. So what I was about to talk about before the swarm of gnats is that, well, okay, yeah, so this, hold on, what day? On the 18th of September, there is going to be a harvest moon, which is a super moon. It's when it looks really, really, really big, okay? So that's the full moon for this month. It's called a harvest moon, which is a really interesting word because remember, asaph means ingathering or harvest. And remember that I told you that the 18th happens to be the Feast of Trumpets on the Ascent calendar. That's kind of interesting. A harvest moon on the Feast of Trumpets on the Ascent calendar. And my best guess is that God is going by the Ascent calendar. That doesn't mean that he's coming for his church on that day. Because I've realized over the years of studying this stuff that a lot of times the sun, moon, and stars, you know, Genesis 1:14, and even Jesus said that the sun, moon, and stars are placed there for signs and seasons. A lot of times they're warnings of something that's to come. It doesn't mean it's going to happen on that day. So, having said that, this is even crazier. I was reading this astronomy paper online, and basically it was saying that this month, well, over the next 30 days, so not just in September, but into October, that the full moon that's called the harvest moon is setting up the next event that's going to happen, which is called a ring of fire partial eclipse. And the reason why it's partial is because the size of the moon where it's in position, it will be a little smaller than the sun. You know, basically from our perception, the moon looks exactly the same size as the sun. That's why in a total solar eclipse, it basically blocks out all the sun's light. But in this case, the moon then is going to position, it's going to be a little smaller, and it's going to look like a ring of fire. That happens on the Jewish Feast of Trumpets on October 2nd. Coincidence? That's kind of crazy when you think about it. So we are right now in the month of Elul. Even in my book, I talk about the month of Elul, and I've kind of likened the last few years that we've been in as like a long, elongated month of Elul, which is the month of repentance, the month of Teshuvah, where we should be seeking the Lord, we should be repenting, we should be getting ourselves ready for what's to come, which is the Moedim of the Feast of Trumpets, and the 10 days of awe that's between the Feast of Trumpets and the Day of Atonement. And you know, my book was supposed to have all of this, but it was so many hundreds of extra pages. Like I said, we had to cut that out. And I kind of thought that one day, I don't know, maybe if I had time, I would finish all of that and compile it and just put it out there in a PDF or something. What I'd love to do, but I still know when I'd have time. And especially if Jesus is coming back for us in a couple of weeks, I think I'm done with that. So anyway, doesn't that sound pretty cool? But now, so now the Ring of Fire, this is another thing that's interesting about it. That's going to happen on October 2nd, the Jewish Feast of Trumpets. It's not going to be seen all over the world. It's going to be seen mainly in certain areas of South America in the southern hemisphere. So I think it was it? No, maybe I wrote it down. Hold on, I did. Southern Chile and Argentina, but the epicenter, which I know is the wrong word, but the middle of it, where it's going to be the best viewing, is Easter Island. Do you know what Easter Island is known for? It's the island where they've got all those god heads sticking out of the ground, which all have full bodies, they know now. There are over 1,100 of these god heads sticking out all over this island. Volcanic rock. I think it's a volcanic island, and someone, however long ago, made these the statues to worship. Now remember Deuteronomy 32, we're talking about all of these, the demon gods, and basically that they're idols. Well, what do you think all this is? So I put this in my notes today because I thought this was important. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, discussing these statues, we'll just call them. It says they're called the Moai, M-O-A-I. I may be saying that wrong, but I don't care. They represent ancestral chiefs who were believed to be descended directly from the gods and whose supernatural powers could be harnessed for the benefit of humanity. Okay, so descended from the gods, that's the Nephilim. The dead Nephilim, the disembodied Nephilim, are demons. So yeah, they may appear to people and make them think that they are, they're there for the benefit of humanity, but they're not. And I just think it's really interesting that on October 2nd is the midpoint, the best viewing spot on the entire planet is this little island with all of these gods. Yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, there's a lot that I could say. I mean, even in Islam, they believe that the Dajjal, which is their Antichrist figure, that he is being held captive on an island right now, and one day he's going to be released and all this stuff. And then you can go back to some other prophecies, extra biblical prophecies. But remember, demons know things. They did in Bible times, and I'm sure they do now. And so as watchers, we should be, we're in a war, and we should be watching and also listening to what the enemy is saying, because when you're in war, you want to try to get the enemy's messages so you know what they're up to. So when you put all these things together, it starts to paint a bigger picture. And I think that's pretty interesting. When I saw that it was Easter Island, oh boy, yeah. So anyway, that's that. Now, I had a lot of things that I wanted to talk about. We're really running late. I sound like Porky Pig. So, yeah, I'll try that again. I had quite a few things that I wanted to talk about tonight in addition, that was sort of in addition to Deuteronomy 32 of last week. But it's very detailed, and I don't think that I'm going to get through this now tonight, and also be able to do what I'd actually planned to do. This is sort of in addition. And so for that person who said that I'm bouncing all over the place and they didn't like it, well, here we are. So hopefully I get back to this, but if Jesus comes, then I won't, and we're not going to worry about it. But I'll sort of prep with this because I hope to talk about it next week. Moses, okay, it was the Song of Moses, right? Moses was 80 years old when the Exodus happened, when they left Egypt. He was 120 when he died. Okay. His brother, Aaron, was 83 years old, and he was 123 when he died. 40 years. So there's 40 years for both of them that they lived until Joshua was about to bring the Israelites into the Promised Land, and they weren't allowed to go in. They both died, and one on Mount Hor and one on Mount Nebu. But anyway, aren't those numbers interesting? And when you plug that into Deuteronomy 32 in a sort of encrypted way, it starts to come alive, and that's all I'm going to say about it tonight. But just understand, well, I'm going to say one more thing about it. That all of those numbers happen to be in the Psalms of Ascent and Psalms of Asaph. So 120 and 123, Psalms of Ascent. 80 and 83, Psalms of Asaph. All very important years on the timeline where those particular psalms land. Pretty crazy, huh? So anyway, I'm still going through that, and I wrote some things about it today, and then I went back and read it, and I thought, wow, I even confused myself. So I may try to attack that from a different direction so that it's a little more understandable. So what we wanted to do tonight, and I have no notes about this, all I have is what you will see on the screen and what you guys see up on the monitor. The Psalms of Ascent, the final 10 steps through the tribulation and into the kingdom. And so basically we left off at Psalm 124, which is also Psalm 76 last week. And both of those psalms seem to indicate a war. Well, they definitely indicate war this year if you put them on the timeline. Remember, for anybody who's just joining and hasn't seen any of the older videos, Psalm 76 matches the 76 years of Israel's rebirth. They're 76 years old right now. Psalm 124 matches 2024. Okay, and that goes back to J.R. Church and this book, where he had discovered that. And I think he makes a really, really good case. And there's really kind of, you either buy it or you don't. It's, and I buy it. He's right. All that can't be a coincidence. Now, since we talked about Deuteronomy 32 last week, so I'm getting off track already, I found this book, and I purchased it, and I got through the first chapter this week. I had no idea that J.R. Church had also written a book about Deuteronomy 32. Now, it's from a different direction. It's not about a timeline or anything like that. So that was not his purpose. I already realized that after one chapter. But he's an amazing person, or is in heaven with the Lord. But he definitely is blessed with insight. So anyway, so I'll go back to where I'm supposed to be. So we are starting with Psalm 125. We're going to try to get through this quick tonight for obvious reasons. Those of us who are here know why. So 2025 matches Psalm 125 and Psalm 77. And so what I'm hoping to get out of this tonight for everyone is for everybody to be able to see the direction that the Psalms go through the tribulation period. You will see a commonality between the Psalms, and they tell a story. When you put them all together, they tell a story of the tribulation period and then into the Millennial Kingdom, the beginning of the Millennial Kingdom. And so on our chart here on the steps, what I'm going to do is what I did is went and just pulled out sort of either a little quote or a main concept. Sometimes you just have to narrow the whole psalm down to what its essence. And I just tried to put that on the line because obviously it's not a lot of space to put this. And I just don't have the ability to make this thing, like a whole wall, which would be great because there's a lot more I wanted to plug in, but I just couldn't. So this is just sort of the summary. So Psalm 125 is definitely the start of the tribulation, and it literally says, the scepter of wickedness will not remain over the land. Now the land is Israel. Okay, that's what all these Psalms are about. The scepter. A scepter is the king's power. It represents his power, and so this obviously is talking about a wicked ruler. And you notice that it says it will not remain over the land. Well, remain means that it is going to be there. It's just not going to be there for long. Well, the Antichrist will have probably the shortest lived empire ever with 7 years. Really, I think it's more 3.5. But the establishment of his empire starts in 2025, according to the timeline. He's already, trust me, been rising behind the scenes, but the restrainer has been restraining him from being revealed, and also, I believe, restraining this war that's going on, like we were talking about earlier. That may be cut out for all the craziness that was going on, but I believe wholeheartedly that the restrainer this thing is going to blow up soon, but when it happens, it's going to be, I heard an economist talking about the economy that we're in right now, and he likened it to how an economy that's failing, it will be little by little by little by little, and then all of a sudden, it's just going to happen. And that's what I think this is going to be also. So now its sister Psalm 77, it actually uses the term. Now there's a lot more to it, but just to narrow it down, it actually uses the phrase "day of trouble." So of course we know that it's the time of Jacob's trouble, is the tribulation period. And again, I mean, I have 20, 30 pages about each of these in my book. This is the very, very condensed version so that you can see the flow that the Psalms take us through the tribulation period. So that's year one. That's where it starts, which I believe will be in the fall, because again, if it's going to end in the fall with the fall feasts, which Jesus has not fulfilled yet, then it has to start in the fall if it's 7 years. So I believe that to be fall of 2025. Now, we've discussed Deuteronomy 24:5 several times, which, a husband takes a wife and he pleases his wife for a year, doesn't have to go to war and so forth. I believe that is the year between the fall of 2024, which is where we're almost at, and the fall of 2025. So now let's go to the fall of 2026, and I put the fall in these for my own purposes because it helped me to keep the timeline sort of aligned with what I think we're going to see. Because if think about it, if the tribulation ends in the fall, it has to begin in the fall, which means the midpoint's going to be in the spring, correct? So the 3.5 year mark is going to be in the spring, which would be the Passover festival, Moedim. And so it's not on there for any other reason, just to help me keep my thoughts straight. Okay, so now we have Psalm 126. Israel, one of the main themes of Psalm 126 is going back to the Exodus, but it's about being brought back. The Lord has done great things for them. So Israel now is at a point after the Gog-Magog invasion where God destroys their enemies. Israel now is saying, okay, Ezekiel 38 and 39 make it very clear that God does this so that he is known by the world and Israel specifically, that it's him that did this great thing for them. So now in Psalm 76, which is 2026, they're basically saying God has done great things for us. They're rejoicing, and there's this theme of being brought back to Israel. So if you know all of the many things that the rabbis believe and the Talmud states that the Antichrist is going to accomplish during his reign, one of them is bringing all the children of Israel back to the land. So here we have it. So then Psalm 78 has a very, very similar account. God has done great things for disbelieving and rebellious Israel. So remember, we read in Deuteronomy 32 how God literally wanted to clobber them himself, right? So we know that they're disbelieving and rebellious. That's been their pattern throughout history. And so, but even though God spared them, he did a great thing and he spared them. Now At this time, they're looking at this person that's come along that they think's their Messiah. And they're starting to think, could this be our Messiah, I think, at this time? And he's doing things probably in the government to bring the children of Israel back to Israel. Because remember, the main goal is to get them all back. You know, interestingly enough, I heard a Muslim, I forget, it was a government leader, I can't remember from where, but from one of the Muslim nations. It was a quote that he was saying a while back. It basically, he's happy. I need to find out who this was. Now, I didn't pay that much attention to it, but basically, as a Muslim nation, he was happy that the children of Israel were making Aliyah, which is their return to Israel, because how better to destroy them all if they're all in one place. He literally said what we've been talking about, the Antichrist is going to do. Okay, so Psalm 78 again for 2026 says, God has done great things for disbelieving and rebellious Israel. So now we move into 2027, which is Psalm 127. And this one is really interesting because out of the 15 Psalms of Ascent, there's only one that was written by King Solomon. Solomon, of course, was responsible for the building of the first temple in Jerusalem, correct? So David didn't build it, it was his son Solomon that did. But just so happens that Psalm 127 is placed exactly at the time when the temple will be rebuilt in Jerusalem. So this will be the third temple. The temple will be rebuilt, but according to Psalm 127, it will be built in vain. Which is perfect, because this isn't God's temple. Jesus is never going to rule from this temple. If you go to Ezekiel 40 through 48, you'll read about the construction of the real temple for the Millennial Kingdom. That's the one where Jesus will be. This is the Antichrist temple, so they are building it in vain. Psalm 79 also continues in a temple theme, matching the same year, 2027. But now I believe there's going to be a big war in 2027, possibly continuing through 2028. It says the temple will be defiled by the nations, and there will be dead bodies of saints in Jerusalem. And specifically, these dead bodies are going to be allowed to just decay in the street. And what's going to happen with the two witnesses in Revelation? Exactly that, but they're resurrected after 3.5 days. So that's a pretty interesting tie-in right there, and both of which align with right around the middle of the tribulation. But I think I said this earlier, but that may be cut out too. Again, sorry, because we had a lot of crazy things happening in the shop. A lot of these psalms, even though it aligns with a certain year, it might be a forewarning of something that either starts that year, but it takes... Nothing is a pinpoint on a timeline. Does that make sense? So like to say Gog Magog started on October 7th, well, it didn't end on October 7th. So if you were to put that on a timeline, it would be 2023, and now we're already almost through 2024, and it's still going on. So how do you plot that as a point on a timeline? So it could be something that starts at, in 2027, but it continues into 2028, even into maybe 2029. So I do believe there's going to be a war, there's going to be dead bodies. It could be very well that this is, the Antichrist is going to really rise to power. Remember the Revelation says, who can make war against him? So he's going to appear to be a great warrior. He's going to put down his enemies. So now let's move into the fall. Oh, I keep saying that. 2028, Psalm 128, and this is very cryptic in there, but basically there is this phrase, out of Zion, and I believe that this is when Israel flees out of Zion. Matthew 24:15, Revelation chapter 12 talks about when the Israelites have to flee out of Judea. If they're there for Passover, they're all going to be around Jerusalem, which is in Judea. And when the Antichrist declares that he is God in the temple, which has now been rebuilt, think about it this way. If Psalm 127 about the temple being built in vain was up here as Psalm 131, if it was repositioned, none of this would make any sense. So how could the Antichrist stand in a temple that isn't built until years later? So when you put all of these pieces together, it paints an accurate picture, which is why I firmly believe this is a real timeline. So Israel flees out of Zion. Now, its sister psalm, which roughly matches the same time period, is Psalm 80, and it goes on to say, the Lord saves and leads Israel like a shepherd. Again, same sort of visual image. And we know that the Lord is going to lead them out of danger into the refuge where they will be kept for 3.5 years, according to Revelation chapter 12. Okay, so that aligns with the spring, I believe, of 2029. I didn't put the exact date of the Passover because, again, we don't know if it's the Jewish one, the Essene one, the who knows. But in the springtime, and it just so happens that April 13th, the same day that all those missiles were shot at Israel from Iran in 2029, is the day that the Apophis asteroid is supposed to at least come very close to Earth, possibly striking the Earth. And then, of course, you see that in the book of Revelation, too. So, I don't know. We'll see. Well, we won't see, because we won't be here. But unfortunately, other people will. But we'll talk about that we'll wrap it up with that tonight, because I think it's very important, especially knowing that we could be literally days, weeks, maybe away. Isn't that crazy to think? Like, all the things that we've studied, all of this evidence that we've been looking at, that it's all coming to this time right now. We are in the highest watch time ever. And if this passes, then, we'll just keep doing what we're doing, because regardless if this passes, we still need to be watching. We still need to be saving. We're still working. We're his workers in the field, and we need to be doing our job, because if he gives us more time, then great. Then more people get brought in to the harvest. So I'm not going to cry about that. It almost at this point seems surreal to think that, like, literally, like, when I'm looking at the calendar and I'm looking at today's date, which is the 6th, and I'm looking, like, 2 weeks down, there's September 18th, which is the Essene Feast of Trumpets. I mean, like, if he comes on that day or any day around it, we're that close? That's crazy. That's fantastic. It's exciting. It's amazing. It's... Yeah, it seemed like this distant thing, and now it's really here.
Yeah. I don't know about anybody else. There's things like something started talking to time.
It has. Yeah, the weeks are flying by. I even said this morning when I was leaving home, and was just kind of talking to the Lord, in my spirit, and just like, Lord, another week's just flown by. I mean, it's flying right now. Maybe it just seems that way. I don't know, but it's really crazy. Well, remember a few weeks ago, I was talking about, late summer, fall, harvest, the summer fruit that's being harvested in Israel, and how that takes us into October, and all of the prophecies that talk about seasons and fruit and things that relate to this time or relate to the rapture. It's all about summer fruit. And here we are. The harvest is actually happening right now. And then we have a harvest moon coming up on the 18th. It's just like, wow. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Okay, so 2028, that happens to be the year that Israel turns 80. Remember? Israel has never made it past 80. They've never made it to 81. As a sovereign, united kingdom. I don't want to call it a kingdom anymore, but nation, okay? They've never made it to 81. It was David and Solomon, 40 years and 40 years, and then after that, it fell apart, and they were divided into Israel and Judea. And then it was in the time of Antiochus Epiphanes and the war that went on then afterwards. They were united for about 77 years, and then it all fell apart again. So that's why Naphtali Bennett and many of the other prime ministers and people have spoken over the decades about how this time they're going to make it. You know, it's going to be different. But the Muslims, they all know this curse, the eighth decade curse. They all know about it. And I believe that they're working hard to make sure that it's fulfilled, that Israel will not make it. And it appears right now. So this is the way I look at it. Israel will still exist as a remnant after 2028, which will be their birthday. They won't make it past, I would say, I'm just going to guess, because their birthday was May 14th, 1948, which means that they will turn 81 in the May time frame of 2029. I don't think they're going to make it to then. Will there be a remnant still alive? Yes, we know that. That's Revelation chapter 12, Matthew 24:15, so on. Okay. So, but when the Antichrist takes over, when he stands in the temple and declares that he's God, he's just basically, that's where the word desolation comes in, the abomination of desolation, or the abomination that causes desolation, as in Daniel chapter 9. So the country is desolate now. That's this war that's going on. And so the country's going to be desolate, except for the remnant that has fled and God is going to protect for the rest of the tribulation period. So now, having said that, we're going to actually see the remnant in these Psalms from here on. So now we're going to move into 2029. Israel is ravaged, okay, desolate. There's so much in here, but it's all in the book that I'd love to talk about because there's so many key words and interconnecting phrases that are just amazing. At this point, Israel, which is going to be the remnant of Israel, calls out to God for rescue. Okay, that's 2029. 2030, Psalm 130 indicates that Israel is waiting. Okay, and they're crying now for forgiveness. So they're starting to repent. Remember all of their unrighteousness, rebelliousness that got them into this mess? So the remnant now is crying out for forgiveness, and they're waiting. Well, what are they waiting for? They're waiting for the return. They're waiting for their rescue at this point. Psalm 82 is really interesting because it connects to Deuteronomy 32, because it talks specifically about the judgment that's coming for the fallen angels, who might just be symbolized by all of those giant heads sticking out of the ground on Easter Island. Because that's what they are. They're fallen angels and the offspring of them, which are the demons. Okay? So it's really interesting because when you read Psalm 82, you find out that God is very angry with the fallen angels. And he declares to them that they are going to die just like men, which means he's going to take their immortality and make them mortal and then crush them. So when Jesus returns, they're getting crushed just like people. So the winepress of his fury and all that, and the blood up to the bridle of the horse's bridle and all that, well, that's going to include, according to Psalm 82, if you put all this together, you can see that that's going to include them as well, because they're not, just as Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 15 that we're going to put off mortality and exchange it for immortality when at the rapture, when our bodies are changed. Well, God's going to do the opposite to them, I believe. A little bit of this is conjecture, but it's me piecing this together. I believe that the only way for these fallen angels, the Banaha Elohim, the sons of God, to die like men, like mortals, is for them to no longer be immortal. I think that's pretty straightforward. So we'll go with that. Anyway, I'm going to move on. So then that brings us, now remember, we've gone through all of these steps. We've seen what's going to happen basically to Israel. In 2028, 2029, we see that they're now in the refuge. They had to flee. The Antichrist is trying to kill them at this point also. So, Psalm 131, which would match 2031. Israel is calm and humble at this point. So they have quieted their spirits, basically. They're in the refuge, whatever that looks like. And I think there's some really good indications in Isaiah, which I write about in the book, about kind of what that really looks like. But after being deceived, manipulated, seeing all the things that they've seen for the past number of years, they've seen the demons. I believe we talk about, Ephesians 6:12, that there are these powers and principalities of, that we can't see, but I think they're actually going to see them. I don't think they're going to be something that we imagine anymore, or that they'll have to imagine anymore. I believe they're actually going to see a lot of things that we really can't wrap our minds around. So at this point, Israel is calm in the refuge. They're humble before God. And Psalm 83 indicates that would be the beginning. So this is for 2031. That Psalm 83 is all about Armageddon. People think it isn't, but it falls exactly for Armageddon on the timeline. And once you study that chapter, I think you can't come away from it and think that it's anything else. It's pretty much in there. So I believe, though, that is the beginning of Armageddon. I don't believe that's the end of Armageddon. I believe that at this point, the Antichrist is trying to destroy the remnant of Israel. They will be in the refuge protected by God himself. His duty, his task is to destroy them. And so he's got armies amassing to do just that. We don't know exactly where the refuge is going to be. I don't believe personally that it's going to be in Petra, for various reasons that I explain in the book. But basically this huge staging area of Armageddon makes a perfect place for all of these nations to come and do their best to try to destroy the remnant that's being protected by God. And they're not going to succeed, by the way, which is why it says that that Israel is calm and that they're humble, because they're trusting in the Lord now finally. They're calm, even though all this stuff is going on. So picture yourself in that year in the refuge, and you are one of the remnant. And you can see that they're all trying to kill you. Like, let's just say you're in a big bubble. I don't know what it's going to look like. It's maybe a big bubble of fire. I don't know. But you can see that they're all trying to kill you. But you realize that the King of Kings and Lord of Lords is protecting you, and they can't get you. They can't do anything to you. So what a perfect psalm to plug in for that place that basically says, we're calm, we're not worried about a thing anymore. And that's really what it says. I'm paraphrasing, but... So anyway, then we see the beginning of Armageddon. Again, I don't believe that's a one-day event. I think that's probably going to take about a year. I think they're going to be trying and trying and trying. And then at the end of it is when Jesus returns. And I just want to say really quick, when Jesus returns on a white horse, what does he say in Matthew 23? That Israel's going to cry out. They're going to cry out, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." That's the trigger for his return. That's what they cried out when he rode into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey. Do you kind of see the pattern? So, and it's really interesting because that comes from Psalm 118. And it makes you think, now I don't know all the Hebrew tradition in this, but when he rode into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey, how did they know to sing that part of Psalm 118 that says, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord"? Now, I have read speculation it has to do with David, even though this psalm was probably not written by David. And it's about after Absalom and when he had fled and he's coming back into Jerusalem. So they suspect that there might be some history there that would cause them to associate a Messiah figure coming into Jerusalem, and they cry out, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." However, we don't really know. But they knew to cry out, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord," when they saw the fulfillment of Zechariah 9:9, when Jesus rode into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey. So in the future, according to Matthew 23, Jesus says that same scenario is going to repeat itself one day. So think about it. It was in Matthew 21 when it happened. Then a few chapters later, he's now in Jerusalem. He says, he might be on the Mount of Olives. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, he's around there anyway. And he says that's going to happen again. But that you won't see me again until this happens. That's prophetic. But you see the pattern. That is stated in the Bible those 3 times: Psalm 118, Matthew 21, and Matthew 23. And I personally, I just think it's really cool how Jesus mapped all this out. So that takes us to the end of the tribulation. It will be the remnant in the refuge that God is protecting that will do that crying out. They will be victorious because Satan will not be able to kill them all. And remember that that's his only winning strategy. He has to kill them so that they can't cry that out. And he knew that when Jesus said it. Satan's always there listening, and he's trying to map out his strategy. This is a war. He's at war. He's at war with us, and he's at war with our master, with our Lord. So anyway, so now that brings us to what I believe will be the fall of 2032, which is Psalm 132. And clearly in Psalm 132, the Lord is on the throne in Zion. Okay? And Psalm 84 matches as well. The Messiah is in Zion. It's pretty amazing how all of these coincide and match each other. So this would be his return. So somewhere between Psalm 83 and Armageddon, at the end of that, I say in between, not really in between, but at the end of, Jesus will return. That war, when they're basically, let's just think about it this way. Think about the Antichrist and his armies. They are literally firing everything they can think of at nuclear, I don't know what else, right? But they're firing everything they can at this refuge. And they can't do anything to them because God is protecting them. So we don't know how long that goes on, but I'm guessing since it's in 2031-ish, when Psalm 83 happens, I believe that that's probably the beginning of that time, but that's probably not the end of that time. I think the end of that is in probably the fall of 2032. Speculation, but that's how it all fits together. So anyway, after the Lord's return, we go to Psalm 133. Now the Psalms of Asaph and the Psalms of the sons of Korah have now ended. So there's only one psalm matching these next 2 years. That would be in the Psalms of Ascent. And Psalm 133 is clearly about unity among all of us, basically, and life forevermore. And then Psalm 134 is blessings from Zion. And I think that's such a great psalm because it almost sounds like a postcard. It's sort of like, when you read it, I keep picturing a postcard. Like, you know, when you go out of town, you go to some great place and you want to send your family a little postcard and it says, like, greetings from Hawaii. I've never been there, but you know what I'm talking about. It just sounds like a postcard, like it's all over. All that bad stuff that you just read about through the tribulation, all that's ended, and now it's life forevermore and blessings from Zion, because that's where all the blessings are going to flow from, because that's where Jesus will be. That's where the new temple will be built. You know, when you read Ezekiel 40 through 48, you get a really good idea. I mean, it's basically a blueprint of the coming temple that Jesus will be in. And I don't believe he's going to snap his fingers and just make it happen. I believe it will be built in probably over 3.5 years period of time. It makes me wonder if that 1335 number, you know, you got the 1260, the 1290, and the 1335. People have always tried to overlap the 1335 with the 1290 and try to make it the same time period, but just a few extra days. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's in addition to the 1290. Maybe that's the time in which it takes to build the temple. I don't know. That's just my own speculation, but I've never heard anybody think of that. And after putting the timeline together, it struck me as a very significant and possible possibility. A possible possibility, we'll put it that way. So anyway, speculation though. So that is our short, brief walk through the remaining 10 steps up to the temple. And of course, how does this end? With the temple in Zion. Because when you're talking about Zion, that's what you're talking about. So now, the last thing I want to do tonight, before we finally get out of here is I wanted to talk about, somewhere in here I have some notes. I wanted to talk about the fact that time is very, very short, quite possibly, not set in a day or an hour, but I believe that every indication, all of the evidence points to now. If time is that short, and we've known this time was coming for months, you know, as we've been doing videos and we've been meeting together, you know, we're all aware of it, that this is the highest watch time ever, and we're supposed to be watching. And according to Ezekiel 3 and Ezekiel 33, if we see something coming and we don't tell others about it, then their blood is on our heads. So we are heralds at this point. God made us heralds. We know this. We see it, so we see this day approaching. It may veer off. It's like until like you're on top of a wall. Let's say you're on the wall of Jerusalem and an army is coming at you. They may turn and go the other way. They may retreat. Who knows? But we see the day approaching, just like the army approaching the wall that I'm a watchman on, and it's my responsibility to say something. So that's why we're doing these videos. We are saying something. We are trying to tell whoever will listen, and then we take what we learn, and then we go out and we subtly tell people about Jesus and salvation and that they need to be prepared, not because I just don't think it's a great strategy to throw prophecy at them right away, because that may not be the best way to accomplish it. But anyway, long story short, I believe that it is our duty to be doing this. So as a sort of a last will and testament, I believe that we need to leave behind as much as we can and make it absolutely known to whoever walks into this shop when I'm gone, whenever that happens. They're going to find a pile. Well, this is jackpot central, I think. Okay, so they're going to find a pile of notebooks. They're going to find Bibles. They're going to find my book, which walks you not only to but through the tribulation period. I think it's very important. It's a very important book to leave behind. They're going to find these books right at JR Church. I'm going to make thumb drives, which if there's an EMP or something involved, electromagnetic pulse, and all that's going to be wiped out. So the more physical, tangible stuff we can leave behind, the better. But I'm going to make a sign. I don't know. I was thinking about it today while I was working. I'm thinking it might be kind of funny. I don't know. Maybe next week I'll have a sign, but something like, in case of, you know, disappearance or rapture or whatever, you know, with an arrow, like read this, and then, but not just leave books and things behind. I think we should write a letter to whoever. It's literally like, okay, that's what Moses did. That's what Deuteronomy 32 is. It's sort of a last will and testament to Israel. You know, this was his last day. And so Deuteronomy 32 and then into 33, where he talks about the different tribes and all that kind of stuff. That's sort of his last will and testament. And I think about the word testament, our testimony about how we came to believe and now where we are because we believed and we followed him. We repented, we followed him. And then I think there's a lot of tracts and things about the Roman road to salvation and things like that. And I tried to take a lot of all of that and make it pretty easy to go through on the last page of my book. And I'm probably just going to put the last page of my book out there somewhere, because it's basically a prayer of salvation. I think it's going to be super important for people, because it's not just a prayer, but it helps you to understand what it all means within the prayer. And so, yeah, now thinking out loud, I want to put that, maybe I'll put it on Facebook and I'll leave some copies. I think it's going to be important. But so everybody listening to this, you may literally only have days or weeks to put this together. So the time of procrastination, because I'm terrible. Like, I don't have any of this together. I've talked about it, but I haven't actually done. I'm just, I'm doing my own thing every day, and I'm working and I'm trying to put this together every week. And And, but as far as sitting down and compiling all of this and writing a letter to the people who will find this, to be a blessing to them so that they don't fall into the trap, because it is a trap. And there are government entities, the beast system is going to try to put stuff in their bodies, under their skin. You cannot do that. I mean, once you do that, you can no longer be saved. And I fully believe that because of what we went through in 2020, now I fully believe that it has a lot to do with that sort of thing, okay? And with DNA, RNA, changing us. Then you go back to Daniel chapter 2, the seed will not mingle. There's a lot of scripture out there that brings you to the same conclusion, that this is a seed war, and the Antichrist is going to try to change people's DNA. The world just proved that they'll take anything. They just proved that they will, to keep my job or whatever, I'll take it. If I got to worship this guy, okay, whatever, I want to keep my job. I don't want to starve to death. I don't want my children to... It's going to be a terrible time. Jesus says it's going to be the worst time ever. So no time like this. And then people today are saying they think we're in the tribulation now. We're in the first 3.5 years. Well, if this is the tribulation, it's pretty easy. I'm sorry, we're not in the tribulation. What's coming is going to be terrible. And then people will say, well, the 3.5 years is going to be easy. It's the second three. No, for Israel, the first 3.5 are going to be pretty good, because the Antichrist is going to be leading them like a flock of sheep to the slaughter. But that's going to take 3.5 years. The rest of the world, they're going to try to be moving out of the rest of the world, making Aliyah to Israel, because the rest of the world is going to be on fire. The only safe place that looks good to them, where the Lord has done great things for them, will be in Israel. That's why they're going to go back to Israel. So America is going to be terrible. Everywhere is going to be terrible. This is all to corral them, like the Judas goat we talked about. It's to take them to Israel so that the Antichrist can kill them. That's the point. Anyway, so our mission this week, and I don't mean in 2 weeks, I mean this week, we all need to put something together and leave something in your car, in your home, and at your work.
As with war, death, and war. It's War 31st, I started to know so.
Uh-huh. Oh, no. It's like 1 or 2 pages? Oh, okay. Well, they're thin. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's not make it complicated. Just 1 page. This is why I believed. This is my little short summary of my life story. Jesus is real. We knew this day was coming, and now it's here. And we're gone, and you're trapped. And now you need this information so that you can get through this time. I believe it is our duty to leave this information for people and to make it as easy to understand for them as possible. Because they're not going to have... The Bibles are going to be gone. Anything on the internet's going to be gone. The Antichrist and the beast system is not going to allow competition. They're not going to have dissenting voices out there say, oh, well, I don't believe you. No, I'm sorry, you're dead, right? So that's, it's going to be an underground thing, and people are going to be dying for knowledge, and CNN's going to be telling them that the aliens, the ones that seeded the planet originally 40 million years ago, blah, blah, blah. It's all going to be some kind of a, stuff. And then they're going to say, well, the rapture's been debunked. That's not true. The Bible is false. It was all make-believe, and people are either A, going to believe what they're being told because they want to survive, or they're going to get this information and they're going to be able to piece it together and say, okay, you know what, Lord, I'm sorry. I missed it. Grandma was right all those years. She was telling me this, and now I've got a choice to make. And even if it kills me. So I had another comment where this lady, she had listened to one of the previous teachings where I said something to the effect of salvation is free today, but in the tribulation it's going to cost you, as in it's going to cost you your life. And so there was a little argumentative kind of thing like, well, salvation's always going to be free. I think she missed the point. Yeah, it's not works-based salvation. I'm not saying it's works. The fact is, it's free today, and no one's trying to kill me because of my decision. In the tribulation, they are going to kill you because of your decision. It's going to cost you your physical life. But remember what Jesus said, don't fear the one that can just take your life. Fear the one, that can take your soul, basically, meaning himself. He wasn't talking about the devil. He's talking about himself, because the devil has no power over that. It's Jesus clearly that will separate the sheep from the goats at the end. It's not the devil. So our task this week, before next Friday, is to have our own little box and sign and whatever put together. And if we're still here at Christmas time, and people will think we're crazy, but that's okay. That's all right. We'll just keep going to the box and pulling stuff out and reading and whatever. But so write a little letter, a little last will and testament, your testimony about what Jesus did for you and how you were saved and how you knew this day was coming. Throw some scripture in there from 1st and 2nd Thessalonians and 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and Revelation. It's just I can help with that too if you need help with that. Maybe what we do to make it easier, because a lot of people are gonna be like, I don't know how to do that. Maybe we can do like a little, like a, not your testimony part, but just all the kind of the facts, put it real simply, and with some scripture as part of it, and we can just give that out so that people can add their testimony to it. But here's basically, in a nutshell, what just happened, and and here's where this is going, and all the evidence is in all this documentation that I've left for you, because we love you and we want to see you in heaven with us one day. We want you to be there. And even though all this sounds crazy and like a fantasy right now, reality is much stranger than fiction. And in this case, that's probably, they're going to be thinking this is surreal. This isn't really happening. But anyway, so that's what we've got for this week. Thank you for coming, and I'll try to edit all this out or edit it together, because we had, of course, distractions again, and I think that's just part of it. And maybe some people will look at it and think, well, that's part of the charm of the little meeting that we have in an old crummy shop like this. And then other people will probably think, I just can't tolerate it and I don't want to watch that. So that's okay. There are men in suits with libraries behind them, or a church or something that I'm sure will be better, if that's your speed. But that's not what we have here. So a couple last little things. How do we know, besides the Bible, that the world is coming to a close? Well,
Or we've got what happened with the inflation.
Yeah, the inflation, right? We can see that happening. The rivers drying up, like the Euphrates. We've got, there's just so many things. The wars, rumors of wars, Israel, all these things going on. The fig tree generation's now closing in on 80 years. But there are a few more that I don't think anybody's really thought of. So a while back, Popeyes changed the recipe to their hot sauce on their chicken sandwich. That spells the end of the world right there. Porsche, well, we're just having fun, okay? Yeah, so when that happened, and I went to Popeyes, so I love their chicken sandwich, and I buy a chicken sandwich. It's supposed to be the spicy one, right? And they changed the recipe, and it was terrible. That sauce put them on the map, for crying out loud, and now they changed it, and it's awful. So I thought, well, the world is definitely ending.
That's like Butterfingers.
What happened with Butterfingers?
Something in their recipe too.
Oh, is it?
It does not taste the same.
Okay, so Butterfingers stink. Popeye's spicy chicken sandwich stinks. The Grand Tour comes to a close next week on the 13th. Maybe, yeah. Top Gear. I'm a car guy. Yeah, they're having their farewell episode on the 13th of September. So the world's got to be ending. For car guys, the world is definitely ending right there. Now, here's a kicker, also for car people. I won't just say guys, car people. Car folks. Porsche is going all electric, evidently, by 2030. And starting 2025, the year that the tribulation starts. Now, if this isn't evidence, I don't know what is. Their Cayman and their Boxster are going to be all electric. They will no longer offer internal combustion engines in those two sports cars. That tells me Jesus is coming very soon. Get me out of here. What I want to do is, I'd like to send them a message. I would like to crank all of these cars here and just rev them up and put it on video and send it to them. This is what a sports car sounds like. You know, and it's not just about the sound, the smell. Like when you go to the racetrack and you go do a track day, you know, I used to be a driving instructor for the Porsche Club. That was a long time ago, by the way. But there's something about the sound, the visceral experience, the smells, the smell of the clutch, the brakes, the oil, the fuel, everything. It's like, that's what a sports car is. When you make it electric, okay, it may be fast. So what? It's not about that. It's the whole experience that makes it great. It's not just that it's fast. Because, you know, they'll make the argument, well, the electric car is actually faster, 0 to 60 times, or, you know, smaller and all that. I don't care. That doesn't do anything for me. So, anyway, just some extra tidbits of information at Porsches and Prophecy so that we know for sure the world is definitely coming to a close. We are standing at the door right now. Anyway, God bless, and that's it for tonight. We'll pray out really quick. All right, dear Lord, we thank you for this time together. We love you. We praise you. Lord, we see, we're standing on the wall, and we see what's coming. Even if you divert this, even if you put pause, we still have the same mission. Whether it's now or it's in a year from now, we still have the same mission that you've given us, which is the Great Commission. And we just pray, Lord, that you would strengthen us each and every day, that we would strengthen each other as iron sharpens iron, Lord, that we would be able to fulfill the what you've spoken over each of our lives, that we each have a mission, and we don't want to miss that. We want to be true to what you have said we are supposed to be and do in this lifetime. And I know that's not a matter of salvation or anything, but that's, Lord, that's what you created us each as part of the body. And we want to be responsible for that part of the body that you placed us in. So, Lord, that's my cry to you, that my days fulfill exactly what you had called me to do. So we love you, we praise you, and we give you all the praise and glory, Lord. And we pray that through what we're doing here, that many people around the world will be reached and will also want to go out and change this world for you and have a great abundant harvest in these last days, Lord. So we thank you so much.